she woke to, blinking over her milky cereal at the printed page, full of self-righteous laments. According to the Beachhead Herald, the exiled words would first be whittled from the dictionaries and discarded, then excised from the lexicon of children. Within a few decades, chances were it would be as if they had never been at all. And if the words evaporated, what would happen to the things, the fauna and flora that they identify? Would they too disappear? The idea made Genevieve choke on a sliver of almonds and made her scan the list of endangered words to check whether almonds were among those at risk, and made her savor the taste just a little bit more as she discovered that, yes, tragically yes, almonds were among those on their way out. The newspapers were doing their bit, she supposed, by capturing a few of the endangered words in print, but much more needed to be done. After all, not many children actually read newspapers, do they? So she started with a patch of shore in front of her house, taking a stout stick and carving prose deep into the sand. Genevieve enjoyed the swirl of the letters. Oyster, lobster, mussel, she chanted as she formed the shapes. Minnow, herring, plaice. She gazed at the sand as she inscribed it, and admired the glints she supposed had once been shells or jetsam. But as she strolled home, her heart remained heavy. Her act, she felt certain, was insufficient. After lunch, Genevieve washed her plate and knife clean and set it to dry on the wire rack beside the sink, mind cluttered with words that sang out their plight in rhythm to the radio's chatter. She walked inland to fields starred with poppies, and in the soft soil of paths worn down from use, she wrote otter, weasel, wren, raven, starling, stoat. With laughter in her throat, she added bullock, colt, piglet, doe. Boar, she wavered over, uncertain. It didn't seem quite right to include animals that were no longer native to the land that she was annotating, any more than it seemed fair to omit them. You're doing it wrong, said Genevieve's nephew Ludo, so tall now he gazed down at her like a sentient sycamore. The children who come here already know nature. It's the ones in the towns you need to think about. He was right, she knew. Those children locked in by smaller skies, concrete and glass, they were the ones thirsting for this soon-to-be-lost language, even though they were too ignorant to know it. So she started to seek out pebbles, selecting pale, smooth ones that would fit neatly into a child's palm. On them she wrote in swirling script, ash, willow, beech, kingfisher, newt, lark. These she pressed into Ludo's hands to scatter on the streets, near to where he lived with his mum, her sister. What you're doing, said Genevieve's sister Ava, why does it matter? We need to preserve the words, Genevieve exclaimed. Ava looked at her patiently. But it's impossible for language to remain motionless, she said. It has a chance to migrate every time someone opens their mouth to speak. She had that schoolmarmish look that had so goaded Genevieve when they were small. But this is different, Genevieve insisted. It's genocide, mass elimination. A week later, Ludo turned up on Genevieve's doorstep. Pebbles aren't doing it, he reported. Not enough kids spotting them. They don't see what's at their feet. What then? she asked, because he had the look of an idea about him. And he reached into his bag and pulled out something large and long and glinting. "I'll show you where to do it," he said, and added almost as an afterthought, "I'll show you how not to get caught." That night, under the city's amber clouds, she followed him through subways and up embankments, and on the bridges, brick walls and advertisement hoardings, they spray-painted the names of animals, domestic and wild, native and exotic. Leopard, she sang under her breath as she worked. Ox, poodle, panther, porcupine, terrapin. Ludo joined in too, his calligraphy curling above her. Radish, canary, catkin, clover, cowslip, conker, dandelion, fern. On the sides of a building that reached to the stars, they jotted the letters that made up gorse, gooseberry, hazelnut, bramble, holly, horse chestnut, and leek. Before daybreak, they'd embellished all the bus stops within the city's limits with ivy, mint, crocus, buttercup, primrose, tulip, bluebell, violet, and lavender. Satisfied, Genevieve stood back with a sigh. But as the pink lettering began to glow in the first trace of dawn light, droplets of paint trickled down the bus shelter walls. She thought it looked rather beautiful. High above, a flock of migrating swans travelled in precise formation, necks outstretched, heralding the colder months to come. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan Lavender.